vase. It's a gorgeous vase. We have those soft pink colors. This is a beautiful, this is a bunch. It's like 6 stems of this, almost looks like the air plant Tillandsia, or like a thistle. Gives you a little different texture. Very inexpensive. It's like $6, $6.50 or something. And don't forget, today is 20% off all supplies. There's no hidden in that. I think that we do have a couple of caveats, like our florist satin ribbon, we don't discount because we give you an everyday low price. And I think on our Oasis, the Smithers Oasis brand of foam, that's always an everyday low price. But other than that, everything's on special today. Little kale, isn't that tiny kale? How much was that miniature kale?
No, but I've got it under your tip.
All right. So anyway, I thought miniature kale. I mean, kale's in everything now. Fresh bouquets, wedding bouquets, centerpieces. So if you get the opportunity, if you want to pick up a few stems of that, because we're going to sell out. And we have it in the purple and the white as well. And then Kim also just cut apart. And that's a really great thing about doing silks, right? You can cut apart the hydrangeas, and you don't have to worry about them getting wilty or falling down on you. And this peony was also a launch. It's one of our bouquet flowers. We've worked with those in the past. We used to carry a full line. Again, remember that a few years ago things kind of changed? Well, now we're bringing a lot of them back in again. So we have garden roses, and what they are is they're like a 6 to 8 inch stem, because you really don't need a stem to do this, do you? And why pay me an extra $2 a stem for a stem you don't even need? So it's a nice open, different apertures on the flowers, and a really nice texture.
How 280?
280. All right, and then the larger version. Kim's got some, looks like some veronica, some little glow thistle or allium in there. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, what do you do about this part of our show is fresh in Minneapolis, right? Isn't that beautiful allium? I said, what do you do about the onion smell in the allium? And I said, well, honestly, if you like allium, that's what you get. There's not really a whole lot you can do, right? But seriously, what you can do is, with fresh allium, if it starts to smell a little too much, hit it with some Febreze. Don't go to the dollar store and get that cheap stuff, right? If you drink scotch, you drink good scotch, you don't drink scotch, right? So if you're going to use Febreze, buy the name brand stuff, makes a difference. It'll mitigate the smell. Or come to Nordlie and buy the artificial, and then you don't have to worry about that at all. And another, isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
Back in when I started the industry back in the 70s, and I was very young at the time, by the way, so I'm really not that old. But I was like 12, 13 years old in the 70s. So I really was. You laughed like maybe I'm lying. No, I really was. So anyway, we did a lot of things on these chalices or the compost, the taller compost bases, even our ceramics. Donald, remember, we had those Hager ceramics, those nice ones with a nice compost. Just lift something up off the table a little bit. You can set your candles around it without the fear that something's going to catch on fire, right? It's something we kind of take for granted, but a lot of places now, even some halls, are putting in a lot of restrictions about flames and having flameless candles versus real candles. We're having a nice little compost like that, lifts it up off the table and out of the way of your molded cups. Isn't that pretty? I love that.
Tom, what's the price on that container?
This one, on the container, I'm not sure. Actually, it's on an accent core. It's one of our import containers. We'll have somebody track it down. All the silks, by the way, today are priced and they're available for purchase at the end of the show. So all we ask is that you give us enough time to take pictures of everything. One of the things we try to do, and I know that when David and the three of us worked together, and when Kim and I were in Minneapolis, we continued that. And that is make things in a couple of different price points, right? So I make something here that's a little bit taller and fuller, and then I have something here that's in a shorter, smaller, less expensive arrangement. And we do that because not all of our customers fit into one category, right? Our customers have different budgets and different needs. But one of the things we can't do is limit what we're going to sell to people. There's a flower shop up in Fenton, Michigan. And, for years, I live in Fenton, by the way. It's a beautiful area. But a lot of people from the Detroit area would go up to this flower shop up there, and I was wondering, why would they go all the way to Fenton, Michigan from the Metro Detroit area? Well, if you go into garages, it's a beautiful greenhouse. It's a wedding and event place. It's a beautiful full-service flower shop. It's a gift store. It's everything, and it's really very, very well done. I get pretty windy sometimes, and I'm sorry, but bear with me. I'll get to the point of my story. So anyway, one time I went in to see John, because he was a customer of mine when I ran the Flint store, and they wanted to show me their wedding and event area that they had just redone. And they didn't just have a table and chairs for wedding consultations. They had a whole area set up. And he had it set up, as they say, all the way to the nines, right? He had huge candelabras. He had charger plates. He had 3 or 4 gold cobblers. He had satin chair covers with bows tied on the chairs and 3 layers of tablecloths and this whole beautiful setting. And if you were a bride coming in there, you could kind of look at that whole table setting and you could spend $1,000 on a table, right? Or you could start whittling it away and make it into everybody's budget. Now, you have to get past the idea of scaring away people because, well, if I want that look, it's going to cost me $1,000. But when you start at 1,000 and then you end up at centerpieces for 200, well, you're pretty happy, right? Rather than you start at 200 and they whittle you down to $39.99. You know, John said, it's up to you. You know, what do you want your wedding to be, right? So when we give them arrangements, and so I try to give them options. You know, and then the nice thing about this is I think many of the things that we're doing, you can do them in fresh in a similar color scheme, so it can help sell some other items. So anyway, I took this one, and I think these were some dahlias we just got in from Import Connection. For those of you who don't know, we just bought Import Connection about 30 days ago, and we've been on a rural run event ever since. It's been great. A lot of the customers were overlapping, so we just kind of brought everything under one roof, right? But things have been going really well. Here's a few succulents I had tucked in and cut off. Here's some more of that. This or our Tillandsia. I want to call it Artemisia. I don't know why, but it's Tillandsia that I put in there. A little bit of ivy. Some I call it Dusty Miller, but it really looks more like a swordfish bush that has that grayish look to it, which is really nice because honestly, you know, every wedding today you have to have Dusty Miller, but it doesn't always look so good, and sometimes it'll dry out on you. You can't bring it back. So to have a artificial alternative or a permanent botanical, it's kind of nice. I don't think many brides will notice, but it does give them the color, so they'll notice that. And we see a huge demand last year and coming into this year for the peaches and the corals. And it's a mix, right? It's not just one solid color. And unfortunately, nobody wants Oceania anymore. They want Amsterdam or something like that, or Cumbia. So we're mixing up the corals a little bit more. Brasilia is becoming very popular, though. It's a nice it's a cross between a peach and a coral with a little bit of that green on the edges. Very pretty. But anyway, so I try to use this arrangement, trying to stay with the colors that we're seeing popular today. The other nice thing is we're seeing a nice wide selection, and when you're over there, you can take a look at different ceramic containers. You know, whether it's our import company where we're bringing in items or from Accent Decor, we're seeing a really versatile line of ceramic containers. And years ago, going back to the 70s when I worked at Floyd's, we were taught that a couple of things show value to a customer, right? In fresh flowers, it was always size, and then it was roses, right? Roses not so much anymore. Maybe it's hydrangeas today. If somebody sees a hydrangea arrangement, they assume it's expensive or it has value. Maybe it's not so expensive, but it does, to the customer, it shouts out value. In permanent botanicals, I think the container and the weight of the container being a ceramic versus plastic shows value. People think, oh, that's a nice container, right? And then down the line, you see the garage sale, they mark it $20, and you just kind of chuckle and go, well, it's not that nice. It's pretty, but it's not that nice. But anyway, I think the ceramic containers are making a very strong comeback, and I think you want to pick up a few of those. People, we're not that disposable society anymore. Many of us are very concerned about the environment and recycling and things like repurposing things. So even in a fresh arrangement, if you start using a few more ceramics, I think you'll see a very positive feedback and a response from the customer. Now here's another one. I love this. Tim, do you know what this is called? It's a beautiful bright green. Can you see it in the back? And it looks a lot like honey myrtle, but it's fresh and it has these breaks, almost like something you might see in the swampy areas. You know, very wispy. And even for what's nice is so many silk arrangements or permanent botanicals feel kind of stiff and heavy, but something like that, just bump the table and it moves and it softens up the whole look of the arrangement. I really like that, and it was inexpensive. It was like $5, but for $5 you got enough to do the whole arrangement. You can cut it up and use it. You know, which reminds me before I get away from it. Kim's been using this bunch cutter. Now the bunch cutter isn't inexpensive, okay? And I'm just a salesman at heart. I have to show it to you. What the bunch cutter is nice for, you ever get those really heavy stems that you just, you know, by cutting 2 or 3 stems, your hands just ache. You can't use it anymore. This thing is like unbelievably easy. I mean, there's no less than a pound of pressure and it drops and cuts, right? So, and I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, it's like $140, but it's 20% off today, so it's really only about $115. But I'm also going to tell you, because several years ago, when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I got arthritis in my hands really bad, and I couldn't cut anything. I mean, heavy wood stems, I was in pain constantly until I got that under control, right? So what I did, the first thing I did, I went to Sears, because they have that Craftsman line, and I looked for wire cutters. And I found a pair of wire cutters about this long. Now you have to trust me on this because I'm a math major too, right? So I took physics in college. And by having a longer handle like that, it takes less pressure to cut. So I just went there and bought the biggest set of wire cutters I could find, kind of because otherwise I didn't know what I was going to do. I can't cut anything. And it worked. So whether you do this and go out and spend some, and this mounts just like a cutter, you know, fresh flower cutter, right to the table, so it's easy to use. You can just mount it to your table or to a board to make it portable. Or go to a good hardware store and go find a very good pair of wire cutters. I highly recommend it because when you start doing silks, the only bad thing about it is it's that cutting, and it's heavy cutting, and it hurts. And after a time, you know, many of you are younger than me, so it's not as big a deal, but it does hurt.